There are places in every city that people avoid without knowing why. Not because they look dangerous, but because something about them feels wrong. This is the story of a narrow alley with no name, no past anyone wants to remember, and one rule that everyone ignores only once. Never walk into that alley alone. Because if something inside notices you, it won't let you leave the same way. Chapter 1. The Alley Without a Name. At the far end of an old street, beyond the noodle stalls, the rusted metal shutters, and the tangled web of black electrical wires hanging overhead like dead vines, there was an alley so narrow that two people could barely pass each other without turning sideways. It had no real name. Some called it Alley 17. Others simply pointed and said, "The one behind the boarding house." But most people in the neighborhood avoided mentioning it at all, as if even speaking of it invited something unwelcome to listen. In daylight, the alley already looked wrong. The walls on both sides were damp and mottled with black mold, streaked by years of rainwater that had dried into long, crooked stains resembling fingers dragged slowly down the concrete. The ground was cracked, uneven, and permanently wet in places where no sunlight ever reached. Even at noon, the air inside felt colder than the rest of the city, as though the passage kept its own weather, its own breath. And after dark, the little light from the street outside only touched the entrance for a few feet before being swallowed whole by a thickness of shadow that seemed less like darkness and more like something alive. I first noticed that alley during the rainy season, the year I turned 26. I had just rented a small upstairs room in an old row of apartments near the market. The place was cheap, cramped, and always smelled faintly of mildew and cooked oil. But it was close to work, and I could walk everywhere. On my first day, the landlady, an exhausted-looking woman with hollow cheeks and sleepless eyes, handed me the key and gave me one warning in a voice so flat it sounded rehearsed. "You can go anywhere you like," she said. "Just don't cut through the alley behind the house. Especially not after 9. I assumed it was the usual kind of warning people gave newcomers. Maybe thieves, drunks, addicts. Every city had places locals exaggerated into ghost stories. I nodded, smiled, and forgot about it. Until Friday night. It had just stopped raining. The street outside the rice shop still glistened with puddles reflecting the flicker of neon signs and weak yellow lamps. I was standing under the awning, waiting for my takeaway, when I saw a little girl in a white dress walking alone toward the alley. She was barefoot. Her hair hung down her back in wet black ropes, dripping steadily as she moved. Her dress, once white, clung to her thin body like soaked cloth wrapped around a doll abandoned in the rain. She walked slowly, almost carefully, her small feet pressing into the dark water on the pavement without making a sound. What unsettled me most was not the child herself. It was that no one else seemed to notice her. The cook kept chopping meat. A man beside me slurped soup without looking up. A delivery driver scrolled through his phone. No one turned their head. No one frowned. No one asked why a little girl was wandering alone that late at night. Only me. I checked the time without knowing why. 9:17 p.m. The girl reached the mouth of the alley and stopped. For a moment, she stood perfectly still with her back to me. Then, very slowly, she tilted her head to one side, an unnatural, listening motion, as though someone deep inside the darkness had just whispered her name. The movement was too slow, too deliberate, too wrong, every hair on my arms rosé. And then she walked in. No hesitation, no fear, no sound. She stepped past the last trace of streetlight and disappeared into the alley's darkness as if the shadows had opened to receive her. I remember staring after her, my food forgotten, my heartbeat suddenly too loud in my ears. A child shouldn't have gone in there alone. I told myself that was all I was feeling: concern, curiosity, human instinct. But beneath that was something colder, older, and far more primitive. Dread. The kind that blooms before the mind understands why. That night, at exactly 3:12 a.m., I heard the first dragging footsteps outside my window. And that was the moment everything began. Chapter 2. The footsteps at 3:12 a.m. The sound did not belong to someone who was awake. It began as something faint, almost easy to mistake for imagination, the soft scrape of rubber against concrete, followed by a dragging shuffle, slow and uneven. But the longer I lay there, staring into the darkness above me, the more certain I became that it was real. KRRRK SSSHH. KRRRK SSSHH. It moved along the ground floor corridor beneath my room, passing one door at a time. There was no rhythm to it, no natural pace. One step lifted, the other dragged, as if whatever was walking down there either didn't know how to walk properly, or had forgotten. My eyes were wide open. The ceiling fan above me spun with a dull, uneven click, pushing around thick, damp air that clung to my skin. The smell of rain still lingered, mixed with something faintly sour, like wet fabric left too long in darkness. I told myself it had to be one of the tenants. Someone half asleep, someone sick. But no one moved like that. The sound came closer. KRRRK SSSHH. Closer. KRRRK SSSHH. Then it stopped. Directly beneath my window. Every muscle in my body locked. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't even blink. For a long moment, there was nothing, no footsteps, no wind, no sound from the street outside. The entire world seemed to hold its breath with me. Then came the knock. Tap. Soft, careful. Tap, tap. 3 times. Each one spaced just far enough apart to feel intentional. My throat tightened. My room was on the 2nd floor. Outside the window, there was no balcony, no ledge, nothing a person could stand on. There was no way anyone could be there. My phone screen suddenly lit up beside me. The brightness stabbed through the darkness, making me flinch. A message. From the landlady. No matter what you hear, do not look out the window. My fingers trembled as I picked up the phone. 3:12 a.m. The knocking stopped. In its place, I heard breathing. Slow. Close. So close it felt like it was pressing against the glass, fogging it with each shallow exhale. The sound was wrong, too wet, too heavy, as though whatever was breathing didn't have lungs the way a human should. A thin layer of cold crept into the room through the edges of the window frame. It brushed against my neck like damp fingers. I pulled the blanket up instinctively, my entire body shaking now despite the heat. Then something scratched the glass. SSSCCRRRKK. A long, slow drag downward. Again. SSSCCRRRKK. Again. Each stroke deliberate, measured, like someone carving invisible lines into the surface. Writing something, or trying to. I squeezed my eyes shut. But it didn't help. Because I could still see her. The girl in the white dress. The way she had paused at the entrance of the alley. The unnatural tilt of her head. The silence of her footsteps. The way the darkness had swallowed her without resistance. A thought forced its way into my mind. Cold and sharp. What if she never left that alley? The scratching stopped. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then, very gently, something tapped the glass again. Not a knock this time. A fingertip. Trailing sideways. As if it was searching. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I wanted to turn. Every instinct screamed at me to look. To confirm. To see what was out there. But the message burned in my mind. Do not look out the window. The breathing shifted. Closer. Not outside anymore. Right beside my ear. Quote ellipsis quote. I couldn't hear words. But I could feel it listening. Waiting. The seconds stretched into something unbearable. I don't know how long I lay there like that, frozen. Silent. Trapped inside my own body while something unseen lingered inches away from me. Eventually, the sound faded. The air grew still again. The presence withdrew. When the first faint light of dawn crept into the room, I finally dared to move. My limbs felt numb, like they no longer belonged to me. Slowly, painfully, I turned my head toward the window. The glass was fogged over. And across it, 5 long, dark streaks. Finger marks. Dragging downward. From the outside.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 3. The Landlady's Warning. By the time morning arrived, I hadn't slept. The light outside was thin and colorless. Barely enough to convince me that night had truly ended. The room felt smaller than before. The walls closer. The air heavier, like something had been inside with me and hadn't entirely left. I kept staring at the window. At those marks. 5 long streaks dragged down the fogged glass. Uneven and dark, as if something had pressed its hand there and slowly pulled downward. They were too long to be a child's, but too narrow to belong to an adult. And they were on the outside. I forced myself to get up. Every step felt wrong, like I was walking through a space that had quietly shifted while I wasn't looking. When I reached the door, my hand hesitated on the handle. A strange, irrational fear crept into my chest. What if something was waiting on the other side? I opened it anyway. The corridor was empty. Too empty. The doors along the hallway were shut tight. No sound coming from inside any of them. No voices. No movement. Not even the usual clatter of someone preparing breakfast or turning on a television. It was as if the entire building had agreed, without speaking, to remain silent. I went downstairs. The landlady, Mrs. Hahn, was already there. Sitting on a low plastic stool near the entrance. She looked worse than the day before. Her eyes were hollow, rimmed with dark shadows, and her fingers trembled slightly as she held a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She looked up the moment I stepped into view. Not surprised. Not curious. Just waiting. You heard it, she said. It wasn't a question. I swallowed. Something knocked on my window. Her gaze shifted past me for a second, toward the staircase, as if expecting something to follow me down. When nothing did, she let out a slow breath, but it didn't sound like relief. It sounded like confirmation. Did you look? She asked. No. Her shoulders loosened, just slightly. Good, she whispered. If you had, it would have been worse. I didn't ask how it could be worse. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Instead, I told her everything. The footsteps, the dragging sound, the breathing, the scratching, the message she sent, and finally, the handprints on the glass. She didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, the silence between us stretched uncomfortably long. The street outside had begun to wake up again, vendors calling out. Motorbikes passing, but inside the building, the quiet remained untouched. Finally, she spoke. Last night, she said slowly, did you pass by the alley? My stomach tightened. I saw a girl, I admitted. She went inside. Mrs. Hahn closed her eyes. For a brief moment, her face looked older than I had ever seen it, like something deep inside her had just sunk a little further. Then it saw you too. A cold sensation spread through my chest. What do you mean it? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood up, set her cup aside, and gestured for me to follow her into the small room behind the front door. She locked it once we were inside. The click of the lock sounded louder than it should have. Listen carefully, she said. Her voice had changed. Lower, tighter, as if every word had to be pulled out against resistance. That alley, it doesn't just lead somewhere. It watches. I frowned. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have to. She stepped closer, lowering her voice even more. People who walk through it alone at night, sometimes they hear things. A child calling, someone they know, something asking for help. My pulse quickened. And if they answer? I asked. Her eyes met mine. They don't stay the same. The room felt colder. I thought about the voice outside my window. The way it had almost sounded like it was forming words. The way it had lingered, waiting for a response. What about the girl? I said. The one I saw. Mrs. Hahn's lips pressed into a thin line. That's not a girl. The certainty in her tone made my skin crawl. It looks like one, she continued. It always does. But it doesn't belong here. Not anymore. I tried to steady my breathing. What is it, then? She shook her head. I don't know what it is. I only know what it does. Her hand tightened around the edge of the table. If it notices you, it starts coming closer. A pause. First, it watches from far away. Another. Then it stands outside. My throat went dry. And then? Her eyes flicked upward. Toward the ceiling. Toward my room. Her voice dropped to a whisper so thin it barely existed. Then it tries to come in. Something inside me snapped tight. I thought of the breathing. The scratching. The way it had felt like it wasn't outside anymore. I forced a laugh, but it sounded weak. So what? This thing just walks around and knocks on people's windows. She didn't react. Didn't smile. Didn't blink. Instead, she leaned closer, her face inches from mine. If you hear your name being called, she said, each word slow and deliberate, do not answer. A chill ran down my spine. If you hear someone you love asking you to open the door. Her voice faltered for the first time. Do not open it. Silence filled the room again. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, and whatever you do. She looked straight into my eyes. Don't ever walk through that alley alone. Chapter 4. The Man Who Sold Incense. I tried to convince myself it was over. Morning had come. The alley was just an alley again. The handprints on the window had faded into faint smudges as the sun rose higher. People moved, talked, laughed outside like nothing in the world had shifted. But something had. I could feel it. Not around me. On me. Like a thin layer of something unseen clinging to my skin, watching through me. I left the house earlier than usual that day, hoping distance would help. The market was crowded, noisy, alive. Exactly the opposite of everything I had experienced the night before. The smell of grilled meat, fresh herbs, motor oil, and damp pavement filled the air. It should have grounded me. It didn't. Because even there, in the middle of all that noise, I kept feeling it. A pause in movement behind me. A presence that stopped when I stopped. Something that didn't belong to the rhythm of the crowd. I turned around twice. Nothing. Just people. Just normal faces. Except, they weren't looking at me. Not really. It was like they were looking through me. That was when I noticed the old man. He sat at the far end of the market, where the stalls grew thinner and the shadows stretched longer under patched tarps. Unlike the others, he didn't sell food or household goods. In front of him were only bundles of incense, folded yellow talismans, and a small bronze bell. He was already looking at me. Not casually. Not with curiosity. With recognition. You're from the house behind the alley, he said before I even spoke. My steps slowed. How do you know that? His gaze dropped, not to my face, but to my left wrist. I followed his eyes. And felt my stomach drop. There, faint but unmistakable, was a bruise shaped like fingers. 5 of them. Long. Too long. I hadn't noticed it before. I hadn't felt it happen. The old man exhaled slowly. It touched you. The noise of the market seemed to dim around us. As if someone had lowered the volume of the world. I forced a laugh. You're guessing. I don't guess, he said calmly. Not about that alley. Something in his tone made it impossible to brush off. I sat down across from him. What do you know about it? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he picked up one of the incense sticks, rolling it slowly between his fingers. That place, he said, was never empty. A chill crept into my spine. Before the houses, he continued, before the street, there was a well there. I thought of the dream. The door. The darkness behind it. And something died in it? He shook his head. Many things did. The words settled heavily between us. Children, he added quietly. I swallowed. Accidents? He looked at me. No expression. No. The air felt heavier. There are places, he said, where death doesn't leave cleanly. It lingers, it gathers, and sometimes it learns. My chest tightened. Learns what? He tapped the table lightly. How to be seen? A long silence followed. I remembered the girl in the white dress. The way she had moved. The way no one else had noticed her. It doesn't always look the same, the old man went on. But it prefers that shape. A child. Something that invites sympathy. Something people won't run from right away. A cold realization crept into my mind. It wants people to follow it. He nodded once. Or to respond to it. The memory of the voice outside my window came flooding back. Why didn't it come in? I asked. This time, the old man's expression changed. Just slightly. It tried. My throat went dry. If you had opened the window, or answered it. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I leaned forward. What happens to people it chooses? The old man's eyes flickered, just for a second, toward the direction of the alley. Even though we were far from it. They don't disappear, he said. Relief flickered in my chest. Until he continued. Not completely. The relief vanished. They leave something behind, he added. What do you mean? His gaze returned to me. Something that looks like them. The world seemed to tilt. I thought about the feeling from earlier. That something was following me. Matching my steps. Stopping when I stopped. Once it touches you, he said, it starts learning faster. My voice came out quieter than I intended. Learning, me? He nodded. Your voice, your habits, the way you move, the way you breathe. A pause. And eventually, his fingers tightened around the incense stick until it snapped softly in half. It won't need you anymore. A sharp, cold wave ran through my entire body. I stood up too quickly, nearly knocking over the stool. That's insane. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Not anymore. The old man reached into a small wooden box and pulled out 3 things. A bundle of incense. A small packet of coarse salt. And a folded talisman tied with red thread. He placed them in front of me. Take these. I hesitated. Why help me? For the first time, something like weariness crossed his face. Because if it replaces you. He looked past me. Toward the unseen alley. It won't stop with you. I picked up the items slowly. What should I do? He met my eyes one last time. Tonight, he said, it will come closer. My pulse quickened. And when it does, his voice dropped to almost a whisper. Do not let it inside. A pause. Then, more quietly. And if you ever see yourself standing somewhere you didn't go. My breath caught. Run.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 5. The Voice at the Door. That night, I prepared like someone expecting a storm. Except there were no clouds. No wind. No sign that anything was about to happen, at least. Not to anyone else. But inside my room, everything felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. I followed the old man's instructions carefully. A thin line of salt across the doorway. Another along the window frame. The incense sticks burned slowly on a chipped plate near the bed. Their smoke curling upward in fragile gray threads that twisted unnaturally. As if reacting to something I couldn't see. The talisman lay beneath my pillow. I kept checking the time. 10:48 p.m. 11:32 p.m. 12:17 a.m. Each minute stretched longer than it should have, as if time itself had thickened, resisting movement. By 2 a.m., my eyes burned from staying open. By 2:47, my hands had gone cold. And at exactly 3:12 a.m., the footsteps returned. KRRRK, SSSHH. KRRRK, SSSHH. The same sound. Closer this time. Not just below. Not just passing by. Coming straight toward my door. My entire body went rigid. The incense smoke shifted suddenly, bending toward the entrance as though something had just entered the corridor outside. The air temperature dropped sharply. My breath fogged faintly in front of me. The sound stopped. Right outside. Silence. Then. Knock. Soft. Careful. Exactly like before. I stared at the door. The thin wooden panel between me and whatever stood on the other side felt meaningless. Another knock. Knock, knock. 3 times. Slow. Measured. My throat tightened. Then came the voice. "Hey, it's me." My heart skipped. I knew that voice. It was my coworker, Dewey. He lived 2 streets away. There was no reason for him to be here. Not at this hour. "Open up," the voice said again, more urgent now. "I need help." I didn't move. Didn't answer. Didn't breathe. The voice paused. Then laughed softly. "And change. Conoi?" My blood turned to ice. It was my mother. Every syllable perfect. The tone, the softness, the slight tremble she had when she was worried, every detail exactly right. "Open the door. Mom's here." My vision blurred. For one horrifying second, instinct almost took over. I almost stood up. Almost walked toward the door. Almost. No. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. My mother was hundreds of kilometers away. She could not be here. The voice continued, gentler now. "I know you're scared," it said. "It's okay. Just open the door a little." A tear slid down my face before I realized it. It sounded so real. Then. Silence. For a few seconds, nothing happened. I thought maybe it had given up. Then something pressed lightly against the door. A slow, dragging sound. Like a face, leaning against the wood. And then, right beside my ear. Not from the door. Not from outside. From inside the room. "Why didn't you open it?" I froze. The voice was no longer pretending. It was wrong now. Layered. Multiple tones overlapping, slightly out of sync. Like several people trying to speak through the same mouth. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Behind me, something moved. A soft shift of weight on the floor. Bare feet. Slow. Careful. Walking. Inside my room. The incense smoke twisted violently. Spiraling toward the corner behind me. My pulse hammered so loud it drowned everything else. Then. A whisper. Right against the back of my neck. Cold. Wet. "You saw me in the alley?" A pause. A breath. "So now I can see you anywhere." My entire body trembled uncontrollably. I squeezed my eyes shut. "Don't turn. Don't look. Don't respond." That's what they said. That's what I had to do. Seconds passed. Or minutes. Or longer. Time had stopped making sense. Gradually, the pressure behind me faded. The air warmed, just slightly. The incense smoke returned to normal. And the silence came back. Real silence. Not the kind that watches. Not the kind that waits. Morning came slowly after that. I didn't remember falling asleep. When I finally dared to look behind me, there was nothing there. But near the door, just beyond the line of salt, were wet footprints. Small ones. Facing inward. Chapter 6. The room it didn't leave. Morning should have made things better. It didn't. The light that slipped through the window felt thin. Diluted. Like it had been filtered through something unseen before reaching the room. The air still carried that faint damp smell. Mixed now with something else, something stale. Like breath trapped too long in a sealed space. I didn't get up immediately. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening, waiting. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. No knocking. Just silence. But it wasn't empty. It felt occupied. Slowly, I turned my head toward the door. The line of salt I had placed the night before was broken. Not scattered. Not blown away. Stepped through. Each grain slightly displaced in a narrow path that led from the door into the room. My chest tightened. I followed the trail with my eyes. It ended near the foot of my bed. Right where the wet footprints had stopped. They were still there. Faint now, but visible, small, child-sized prints, darker than the floor around them. As if something had walked in with water that never fully dried. Facing inward. Facing me. I sat up slowly. Every movement felt deliberate, cautious, like I was trying not to disturb something that might still be there. Because a thought had begun to take shape in my mind. What if it never left? I swallowed hard and forced myself to stand. The room looked normal. Too normal. Bed, table, chair, phone, nothing out of place. Except the mirror. It hung on the wall beside the door. Slightly angled. I didn't remember leaving it like that. I stepped closer. My reflection stared back. Pale, tired, eyes bloodshot. But something felt delayed. I blinked. My reflection blinked too. Half a second late. My breath caught. I froze. Don't react. Don't show fear. I stared at myself. Or at least, at what was pretending to be me. Very slowly, I raised my hand. My reflection followed. But again. Just slightly behind. Like it was copying, not mirroring. A thin smile began to form on its face. I wasn't smiling. I stepped back. The reflection didn't. For a fraction of a second, it stood there, still smiling. Before snapping back into place. Matching me perfectly again. I turned away immediately. My heart was racing too fast now. My thoughts scattering. This wasn't something outside anymore. This wasn't knocking on doors or scratching windows. This was inside. Inside my room. Inside my space. Learning. Watching. Waiting. I grabbed my phone. No new messages. No missed calls. No proof that anything had happened. Except, at the corner of the screen, faint but visible, there was a smudge. 5 thin streaks. Like something had dragged its fingers across the glass. My hands began to shake. I needed to get out. I left the room without looking back, stepping over the broken salt line, down the stairs, out into the street. The world outside was loud again. Alive. Normal. Too normal. I walked straight to the market. Straight to where the old man had been sitting the day before. But the spot was empty. No incense. No bell. No trace that anyone had ever been there. I asked the vendors nearby. They frowned. What old man? The one selling incense. I insisted. Right here. They shook their heads. No one sells that here. A cold weight settled in my stomach. I stepped back slowly. That's when I heard it. My name. Soft. Close. Right behind me. Tongue. I turned. Too fast. Too instinctively. And for a brief, impossible moment, I saw myself standing across the street, watching me. Then, gone. Like it had never been there at all. The noise of the market rushed back in, swallowing the silence that followed. But the feeling remained. Heavy. Certain. It wasn't just visiting anymore. It wasn't just learning. It was practicing.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 7. The ones who shouldn't be there. I stopped trusting what I saw. That was the first change. Not fear. Not panic. But doubt. A slow, creeping uncertainty that settled into every glance. Every movement. Every face I passed. It wasn't immediate. It didn't come all at once. It spread quietly, like a stain in water, until nothing felt solid anymore. That morning at the market, after I saw myself across the street, I didn't go back to the boarding house right away. I couldn't. Because what if something was already there? Waiting. Or worse, pretending to have been there the entire time. So I stayed outside. I wandered through crowded streets. Sat in a cafe longer than necessary. Watched people come and go. Hoping the noise and movement would anchor me to something real. It didn't help. Because that was when I started noticing it. People I knew. In places they shouldn't be. The first time, I told myself I was mistaken. I was crossing an intersection when I saw Dewey, my coworker, standing on the opposite sidewalk. He was facing away from me, staring at something across the road. I almost called out to him. Almost. But something stopped me. The way he stood. Too still. Too straight. No shifting weight. No movement. Not even the subtle, unconscious motions people make when they're waiting. Just fixed. I watched him for a few seconds. Then a bus passed between us. And when it cleared, he was gone. No footsteps. No turning away. Just gone. A chill ran through me. I checked my phone immediately. Dewey had sent me a message 10 minutes earlier. Still at home, taking the day off. I stared at the screen. Then slowly looked back at the empty sidewalk. That was the second change. Not doubt anymore. Recognition. It was doing more than watching. More than copying. It was placing things. Testing me. Seeing what I would believe. By the afternoon, it got worse. I saw Mrs. Han standing inside a convenience store. She was by the refrigerator section. Her back turned, wearing the same faded blouse she always wore at home. Relief hit me so suddenly it almost made me dizzy. Something real. Someone real. I stepped inside. Mrs. Han? She didn't turn. I took a few steps closer. Mrs. Han, I said again. Still nothing. Then, very slowly, she tilted her head. The same way the girl had. My blood ran cold. I stopped moving. Her body didn't turn. Only her head. Slow. Unnatural. Listening. And then, without warning, she spoke. Not in her voice. You called the wrong one. The words came out layered. Distorted. Like multiple mouths speaking through the same throat. I staggered back. A customer brushed past me. Completely unaware. When I looked again, the space was empty. No one by the refrigerator. No one in that aisle. Just rows of drinks. Still. Untouched. I left immediately. By then, I understood something I couldn't unlearn. It didn't just appear as me. Or as strangers. It could become anyone. Anyone I recognized. Anyone I trusted. Anyone I might respond to. That was the third change. Isolation. Not because I was alone. But because I could no longer risk believing that I wasn't. By evening, I made a decision. I would go back to the boarding house. Not because I felt safe there. But because running wasn't working. If it could follow me into the market, into the street, into reflections, then distance didn't matter. When I reached the alley entrance, I stopped. The sky was already dimming. The shadows stretched longer than they should. And for a brief moment, I thought I saw something move inside. Not a figure. Not a shape. Just a shift. Like the darkness itself had adjusted to look back at me. I tightened my grip on my phone and stepped past the entrance. One step. Then another. The air changed instantly. Colder. Heavier. Familiar. But this time, I didn't walk through it. I walked beside it. Keeping my distance. Not looking in. Not listening. Not responding. I made it back to the building without incident. Up the stairs. Down the corridor. To my door. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I unlocked it slowly. Pushed it open. Stepped inside. And froze. Because someone was already there. Sitting on my bed. Back turned. Wearing my clothes. Breathing slowly. As if it had been waiting for me to come home. Chapter 8. The thing wearing my face. I didn't move. I couldn't. Every instinct screamed at me to run. To turn. To slam the door and never look back, but my body refused. I stood frozen at the threshold. One hand still gripping the door handle. Staring at the figure sitting on my bed. Its back was turned to me. But I knew. I knew what I was looking at. The shape of the shoulders. The way it sat, slightly hunched. Like I always did after a long day. Even the rhythm of its breathing. Slow. Steady. Familiar. Too familiar. The door creaked softly behind me as it swung a little wider. The sound broke something. The figure stopped breathing. Not gradually. Not naturally. It just stopped. Silence flooded the room. Then, very slowly, its head tilted. Not turning yet. Just tilting. Listening. The same movement. The same unnatural, deliberate angle I had seen before. My chest tightened so hard it felt like something was pressing down on it from the inside. I should leave. I should leave now. But my feet stayed planted. Because part of me needed to know. Needed to see. Needed confirmation of what I was already too afraid to accept. The figure's shoulders rose slightly. Then fell. A breath. Resumed. As if it had decided something. Then, without warning, it spoke. "You're late." My voice. Perfect. Every tone. Every inflection. Even the slight rasp I had when I was tired. My mind recoiled. "No," I whispered. The word barely escaped my lips. The figure didn't react. Didn't turn. Didn't acknowledge me. It just sat there. Like it was thinking. Then. It stood up. Slowly. Too slowly. Each movement measured. Careful. As though it was trying to get the timing right. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Don't let it turn. Don't let it face you. I didn't know why I thought that. But I knew it was true. If it turned, something would change. Something irreversible. I took a step back. The floor creaked. The figure froze again. Then. It laughed. Soft. Wrong. A slight delay between the sound and the movement of its body. Like audio out of sync with video. And then. It turned. I wish I could say it looked distorted. That it was obviously not me. That something about it was immediately, unmistakably wrong. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that it looked exactly like me. Same face. Same eyes. Same expression. Standing there. Looking at me. But the eyes were too still. Too focused. Too aware. Not reflecting fear. Not reflecting confusion. Just observing. Studying. "See," it said. My voice again. Calm. Controlled. "I'm getting better." A wave of nausea hit me. "What are you?" I forced out. It smiled. "I didn't. I told you," it said softly. "I'm you." "No." It took a step forward. I stepped back. We mirrored each other. Perfectly. Except. It never blinked. Not yet. It corrected. Another step. Closer. But I will be. The room felt smaller. Tighter. Like the walls were closing in. Forcing us together. "You're learning from me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes." "How long?" It tilted its head. Thinking. "Since you looked into the alley." A cold wave washed over me. "Why me?" This time, it didn't answer immediately. It just stared. Then. Very quietly. "Because you looked back." Silence stretched between us. Heavy. Suffocating. Then it raised its hand. Slowly. Matching a gesture I hadn't made. Not copying anymore. Initiating. That was new. That was wrong. "Give it to me," it said. My pulse spiked. "Give what?" It smiled wider. "Your place." The air in the room shifted. The temperature dropped suddenly, sharply, like something had just opened a door to somewhere cold and deep. Behind me. I heard it. A second breath. Not mine. Not its. Something else. closer to the door, closer to me. And then, a whisper. Soft. Childlike. Right behind my shoulder. Let it have you. I didn't turn. I ran. I shoved past it. Through it. And for one impossible second, it felt like pushing through cold water. Dense and resistant. Then I was out. Out of the room. Out into the corridor. Slamming the door behind me with shaking hands. Inside. Something hit the wood. Once. Twice. Then stopped. Silence. I backed away slowly. Heart racing. Mind collapsing under the weight of what I had just seen. It wasn't just copying anymore. It was replacing. And the worst part? It wasn't in a hurry. Because it knew. Sooner or later. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 9. The Alley That Breathes. I didn't go back into my room. Not that night. Not after what I saw. I stayed outside until dawn, sitting on the cold concrete steps near the entrance of the building, watching the alley from a distance like it might move if I stopped looking. Every passing minute stretched thin with tension, my body refusing to relax, my mind replaying the same moment over and over. That face. My face. Looking at me like I was the one who didn't belong. By morning, I understood something I hadn't been ready to accept before. Running wasn't going to work. Locking doors. Drawing lines of salt. Pretending I could wait this out. None of it mattered. Because it had already come inside. And if it could be in my room, then there was nowhere left to hide. So I made a decision. I was going back into the alley. Not at night. Not when it wanted me there. But during the day. When everything was supposed to be normal. When it was supposed to be weaker. At least. That's what I told myself. The alley looked smaller in daylight. Less threatening. Just a narrow passage between old walls. Damp and cracked. Littered with trash and stained with time. Sunlight reached a few meters in before fading into a dim gray corridor. There were no shadows moving. No voices. No signs that anything had ever been wrong. It almost made me feel stupid. Almost. I stepped inside. The temperature dropped immediately. Not drastically. But noticeably. Like stepping into a place where air had been sitting still for too long. Each step echoed softly under my feet. Tap. 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 Too clear. Too hollow. As if the ground beneath the concrete wasn't solid. As if there was space below. Watching. Listening. I swallowed and kept moving. Halfway in, I stopped. Because something changed. The light behind me. It dimmed. Not like a cloud passing overhead. More like something had shifted, blocking it. I turned. The entrance was still there. Still open. Still visible. But it felt farther away. Wrong distance. Wrong depth. Like looking at it through water. My chest tightened. Don't turn back. Keep going. I faced forward again. The end of the alley should have been a wall. I had seen it before. A dead end. But now. There was more. The space stretched. Extended. As if the alley had decided it wasn't finished yet. A faint shape formed in the distance. Something that wasn't there before. A structure. Low. Dark. Incomplete. A house. My pulse spiked. No, I whispered. But it was there. Fading in slowly, like an image developing in old film. A small, burned-down house. Walls blackened. Roof partially collapsed. And at the center, a doorway. Open. Waiting. A cold wind brushed past me. From inside. Carrying something with it. A smell. Wet ash. Rot. And something faintly sweet underneath. Like something that had been left too long and forgotten. I took a step back. The ground beneath my foot felt soft. I looked down. The concrete was still there. But for a brief second, just a second, I thought I saw water. Dark. Deep. Rippling slightly. Then it was gone. I stumbled, catching myself against the wall. That's when I heard it. A voice. Soft. Behind me. Tongue. I froze. My eyes closed instinctively. Don't respond. Don't turn. I know that rule. I know it. But the voice came again. Closer. Right behind me. You came back? My breath shook. It wasn't mocking. It wasn't angry. It sounded pleased. I clenched my fists. Said nothing. The silence stretched. Then. Footsteps. Light. Bare. Circling me. Slowly. Carefully. As if something was walking around me in a tight circle. Studying me from every angle. I kept my eyes forward. Fixed on the house. On the doorway. Because something inside me understood. If I turned now, I wouldn't see what I expected. The footsteps stopped. Right in front of me. Too close. I could feel it. Cold. Damp. Waiting. Then. A whisper. Not from behind. Not from the side. From directly in front of my face. So you can see it now. My eyes snapped open. There was nothing there. But the house was clearer. More solid. More real. And inside the doorway, something moved. A shape. Tall. Familiar. Standing in the darkness. Watching me. I didn't need to see its face to know. It had mine. Chapter 10. The house at the end. I don't remember deciding to go inside. I only remember that I did. One moment I was standing there, staring at the doorway, at the shape waiting within it, and the next. My feet were moving forward, as if something had gently, patiently pulled the thought out of me. Step by step. Closer. The air thickened with every inch I crossed. The alley behind me felt distant now. Unreal. Like something remembered rather than something I could return to. The light had faded completely. There was no sun here. No sky. Only that dull, gray dimness pressing down from above. The doorway loomed. Black. Open. Breathing. I hesitated at the threshold. Not out of fear. But because something inside me understood. This was the last point where I still belonged to the outside. After this, I wouldn't. A cold draft slipped past me, brushing against my face like a hand urging me forward. And I stepped in. The temperature dropped instantly. Not just cold. Deep cold. The kind that settles into bone. That doesn't fade. That feels older than the air itself. The floor beneath my feet was uneven. Brittle. Burned tiles cracked under the slightest pressure, releasing faint echoes that didn't sound right, too hollow, too distant, as if the sound fell downward instead of outward. The smell was worse inside. Wet ash, rotting wood, and something metallic beneath it, like dried blood that had soaked into the walls and never fully left. The room was small, smaller than it had appeared from outside. But it didn't feel contained. The corners stretched just slightly too far. The ceiling hung just a little too high. Everything was off. I took another step and heard something move behind me. I turned. The doorway was still there, but the alley beyond it was gone, replaced by darkness. Flat, empty, sealed. My breath hitched. No. I rushed back, reaching for the frame. My hand passed through it. Not through wood. Not through air. Through something that felt like thick, cold liquid. I jerked back immediately. The surface rippled where I had touched it. Like water. Like a boundary. I wasn't in the alley anymore. I was somewhere else. A sound broke the silence. Drip. 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 Slow. Rhythmic. Coming from deeper inside the house. I turned toward it. There was a narrow opening leading further in, a doorway without a door. Its edges charred, its interior darker than the room I stood in. And beyond it, something shifted. Not clearly. Not fully. Just enough to confirm that I wasn't alone. I swallowed hard. Then stepped forward. The second room was worse. At the center of it, a well. Small. Circular. Lined with old, blackened bricks. The top partially covered by a warped wooden lid that had been pushed aside just enough to reveal the darkness below. The smell was strongest here. Heavy. Suffocating. And underneath it, that same faint sweetness. The kind that didn't belong. The kind that meant something had been left too long in the dark. The dripping sound came from inside the well. Drip. 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 I approached slowly. Every instinct told me not to look. Which meant, of course, I had to. I leaned over. Just enough to see. The darkness inside wasn't empty. It was layered. Moving. Shifting. And then, I saw it. A face. Far below. Looking up. White. Still. Eyes open too wide. Locked onto mine. I stumbled back, slamming into the wall. The air shifted violently. The dripping stopped. And from inside the well, a voice rose. Not echoing. Not distant. Right beside my ear. You found me. I turned sharply. Nothing. But the voice continued. From the well. From the walls. From behind me. From inside my own chest. I've been waiting. My heart slammed against my ribs. The surface of the well trembled. The darkness inside it moved. Rising. A hand emerged. Pale. Wet. Fingers too long. Gripping the edge. Another hand followed. Then. A head. Slowly pulling itself upward. Water, or something like it, slid off its face as it climbed. And when it lifted its eyes, I saw myself. Not just similar. Not just close. Perfect. Every detail. Every line. Every flaw. But wrong. Because it was smiling. And I wasn't. It pulled itself halfway out of the well, tilting its head slightly. The same motion. The same listening gesture. Then it spoke. Now I don't have to guess anymore. My voice. Clear. Certain. Final. You came to me. The room felt like it was closing in. The walls tightening. The air thickening. It climbed further out. One hand. Then another. Dragging itself up with slow, deliberate strength. I was learning you, it continued. But this. It looked directly into my eyes. This is better. A cold realization hit me like a blow. This wasn't about chasing me anymore. It wasn't about entering my room. Or mimicking from a distance. It had brought me here. To complete it. To finish learning. To replace. Behind me. I heard something else. Another movement. Another step. Another presence entering the room. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. Because I already knew. There wasn't just one of it anymore. And somewhere, deep in the dark, something was still climbing up.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 11. The Ones That Stayed. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. Not in the way I understood alone before. Because now, there were too many of me. The thing climbing out of the well paused halfway. Its fingers gripping the edge. Its face tilted upward toward mine with that same patient, knowing smile. Behind me. Another step. Soft. Measured. Bare feet against burned tile. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Because I already knew what I would see. And I wasn't sure I could survive confirming it. The one in the well spoke again. They don't leave, it said. Its voice echoed slightly now, not through the room, but through something deeper, like it was being repeated in layers beneath the surface of sound. They stay. My throat tightened. What are you talking about? I managed. It didn't answer directly. Instead, it lifted one hand from the well's edge and pointed, not at me, but past me. Slowly. Deliberately. Inviting me to look. I resisted. For a second. 2. 3. Then something in me broke. And I turned. They were standing there. At the edge of the room. Half in shadow. Half in that dim, gray light. 3 figures. Too still. Too quiet. Watching. My breath stopped. The first one. I recognized immediately. Min. The tenant who had disappeared. His face was pale, stretched slightly too tight over his bones. His eyes sunken but wide open. His clothes clung to him as if permanently wet. Dark patches spreading across the fabric like stains that never dried. But it was his expression that froze me. Not fear. Not pain. Just absence. Like whatever had once been inside him had been hollowed out and replaced with something that only knew how to stand. How to look. How to wait. Next to him. A child. Small. Barefoot. Head slightly tilted. The same posture. The same stillness. My stomach dropped. And then. The third figure shifted. Just slightly. And I felt something inside me collapse. Because it was me. Not the one from the well. Not the one I had seen in my room. This one was different. It looked worn, dimmer, like a version of me that had been here longer. Standing there, among them, silent, watching, waiting. No, I whispered. The word barely existed. The thing behind me, still half emerged from the well, let out a soft, almost thoughtful hum. You see now. I staggered back a step. They're not gone, it continued. They're here. Another pause. They just stopped being needed. A cold wave spread through my chest. What did you do to them? I demanded. This time. It smiled wider. We didn't do anything. A slight tilt of the head. They came. The room seemed to tilt with the words. They answered. I thought of the voices. The knocking. The way it had called me. The way it had almost made me open the door. The way it had almost. Once they respond, it said softly, they belong. My pulse roared in my ears. They become part of this place. A low sound came from the figures behind me. Not quite movement. Not quite breath. But something shifting. Alive in the wrong way. They don't leave, it repeated. They remain. I shook my head, backing away. No. Another step. No. The floor beneath me felt unstable. Like it wasn't solid anymore. Like it was thinning. And you, it said, its voice lowering slightly, growing more focused, more precise. You're almost ready. My chest tightened violently. For what? It tilted its head. That same motion. That same listening. Then, for staying. Something moved behind me. Closer now. Too close. A hand. Cold. Wet. Touched my shoulder. I flinched violently, spinning around. Min was right there. Closer than he should have been. Closer than I remembered him standing. His eyes locked onto mine. And for the first time, something flickered inside them. Not life. Not fully. But something close to it. His lips parted slightly. And a sound came out. Broken. Dragged. As if it had to fight its way through something thick. Don't. My breath caught. Look, too long. The words trembled apart. Falling. Failing. But real. For a brief, fragile second, Min was still there. Still himself. Still trapped. Then, the flicker died. His face went empty again. The thing behind me spoke. He remembers sometimes. A pause. Not for long. The room grew colder. The figures shifted again. Not stepping. Not walking. Just. Closer. By less than an inch. But enough. Enough to feel it. Enough to know. Enough to understand what would happen next. I was running out of time. Chapter 12. The exit that takes something with it. I understood. Not all at once. Not clearly. But enough. Enough to feel the shape of it forming in my mind like something crawling out of the dark, slow. Inevitable. Impossible to ignore. There was a way out. There had to be. Places like this didn't trap you by force alone. They trapped you by agreement. By response. By recognition. You answered. You looked. You followed. And in doing so, you stepped across something you couldn't step back from. Unless you broke the rule. Behind me, the thing from the well pulled itself fully onto the floor. I didn't turn this time. I didn't need to. I could hear it. The slow, wet drag of its body against the burned tiles. The faint shift of something that didn't move quite like a human should. And yet, it sounded more like me now. More precise. More controlled. It had learned enough. Don't be afraid, it said. My voice. Steady. Familiar. Wrong. You're not trapped. A pause. You just haven't chosen yet. My pulse pounded violently. Chosen. The word echoed in my head like a key turning in a lock. I looked at the figures again. Min. The child. The other version of me. They weren't moving toward me. They weren't attacking. They were just there. Existing in that in-between state. Neither gone. Nor fully present. Waiting. Like placeholders. Like something had paused them. Until something else took their place. My place. No, I said. But my voice lacked conviction. Because part of me already knew. This wasn't about escape. It was about substitution. The thing spoke again, softer now. Almost gentle. You can leave. My breath caught. But not empty. The meaning hit instantly. Something inside me recoiled. No. You came in alone. It continued. But you won't go out alone. A slow step. Closer. I could feel it now. Right behind me. Its presence pressing against the back of my thoughts. Like it was already inside. Already mapping. Already aligning itself with everything I was. If you leave like this, it said quietly, you take something with you. A pause. And it stays. My eyes shifted back to Min. To the faint flicker that had almost been him. To the broken word he had forced out. Don't. A realization formed. Sharp. Terrible. If I left. Without choosing. It would choose for me. It would follow. And I wouldn't even know when it had taken over. But if I chose. If I took something with me. Then something else would remain. Something would stay behind. A replacement. A balance. My stomach twisted. You're asking me to trade, I said. The thing didn't deny it. That's how leaving works. The room felt like it was tightening. Closing. Time was running out. I could feel it. Not in seconds. But in proximity. The figures behind me shifted again. Closer. Min's head tilted slightly. The child's fingers twitched. The other version of me smiled. I looked at them. Really looked. And understood something else. They weren't just victims. They were options. My chest constricted. No. The word came out weaker this time. The thing behind me leaned closer. Its breath brushed my ear. Cold. Wet. You don't have much left of yourself anyway. A pause. Then, almost kindly. Pick. My mind fractured. Run. Fight. Refuse. None of it mattered. Because the rules had already been set. And I had already stepped inside. My gaze locked onto Min. For a second. Just a second. That flicker returned. Faint. Fragile. But there. Don't, he tried again. The sound broke halfway. Fading. Slipping. If I chose him. He would stay. Forever. But if I didn't. Would he ever leave? Would any of them? Or would they all just remain here, waiting for the next person who walked in alone? My chest tightened painfully. This wasn't a choice between right and wrong. This was a choice between which part of me I was willing to lose. The thing whispered again. Pick. And somewhere deep inside me, I knew. Whatever I chose, something would follow me out.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 13. The choice that doesn't undo. The room held its breath. Everything stopped. Even the dripping from the well. Even the shifting of those things behind me. It was as if the entire place, this broken house, this impossible space, was waiting for a single, fragile decision to snap into place. Pick. The word came again. Closer. Inside my head now. I stared at them. Min. The child. The other version of me. 3 figures. 3 silences. 3 different endings. My thoughts raced, collapsing into each other. If I chose Min, I'd be condemning him, freeing myself. If I chose the child, I didn't even know what that meant. It wasn't human. Not anymore. Maybe never was. And if I chose myself, the other version, the dim one, the one that had been standing there longer, what would that even do? Would it take my place here? Would I take its place out there? Or had that already happened? A sharp pressure built behind my eyes. Time was slipping. I could feel it. Like something tightening around my mind. I couldn't wait any longer. I stepped forward. 1 step. Then another. The figures didn't move. Didn't react. They just watched. I stopped in front of Min. Close enough to see the details. The way his skin had thinned. The way his eyes struggled to focus. The way something beneath the surface seemed to ripple faintly. Like he was being held together by something that didn't quite fit. For a moment. Just a moment. I thought I saw him. Really saw him. Buried somewhere deep inside that stillness. Don't, he tried again. It hurt to hear it. To understand it. To ignore it. I'm sorry, I whispered. I don't know if I meant it. I don't know if it mattered. Because the moment I reached out, everything changed. My hand touched his shoulder. Cold. Too cold. Like touching something that had been left in water for too long. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, the world snapped. The air screamed. Not sound, but pressure. Everything bent inward, like the room had just folded around us. Min's body jerked violently. His eyes widened. And for the first time, fully focused, fully aware, fully him. No. The word tore out of him. Clear. Human. Alive. Then. It was gone. His body collapsed. Not falling. Not dropping. But unraveling. Like something had pulled the thread that held him together. His form broke apart into something dark. Thin. Dissolving into the floor. Into the walls. Into the space itself. Absorbed. Erased. Gone. And in that same instant, something slammed into me. Not physically. Not from outside. From within. A flood. Cold. Heavy. Violent. My lungs seized. My vision blurred. My mind split. I staggered back, gasping. and heard it. My own voice. Behind me. No. I turned. And saw myself. Standing where I had been seconds ago. Whole. Solid. Watching me. The dim version. No longer dim. No longer empty. Filled. Complete. It smiled. And this time, I felt it. Because that smile was mine. A tearing sensation ripped through my chest. Something inside me was shifting. Sliding. Making space. You chose, the thing said. Not from one place. From everywhere. And now. The room shuddered. The walls cracked. The well roared. You can leave. The doorway behind me flickered back into existence. Light. Faint. Distant. Real. I stumbled toward it. Each step heavier than the last. Like something was trying to hold me in place. Like something inside me didn't want to go. Behind me. I heard movement. Multiple footsteps. Not chasing. Not rushing. Just following. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Because I knew. If I did, I wouldn't see what I expected. I crossed the threshold. The alley hit me all at once. Air. Sound. Light. Real light. I fell forward onto the concrete. Coughing. Shaking. Dragging in breath after breath like I had been underwater for too long. For a moment. Everything was normal. The alley looked like an alley again. Narrow. Dirty. Real. I was out. I made it out. A laugh almost broke out of my throat. Until I saw the shadow. It stretched beside me on the ground. But it didn't match my movement. I froze. Slowly. Slowly. I turned my head. And there, just behind me, standing at the mouth of the alley, was someone. Still. Watching. Wearing my face. Chapter 14. The one that walks out. For a moment, I thought I was safe. That stepping out of the house meant leaving it behind. That whatever I had chosen, whatever I had lost, had stayed in that place. Sealed within the alley, buried beneath burned walls and something older than memory. I was wrong. Because it stepped out with me. It didn't rush. Didn't chase. Didn't need to. It stood there at the mouth of the alley. Just inside the line where shadow met light. Watching me with quiet patience. The same posture. The same stillness. My face. My body. My shape. Perfect. Except. It wasn't breathing. I pushed myself up slowly from the ground. My legs unsteady. My chest still tight from whatever had forced its way into me back inside that house. "You're not coming out," I said. The words felt weak the moment they left my mouth. Because I could already feel it. That thin, cold presence inside me. Settling. Aligning. Listening. It tilted its head. That same unnatural motion. The same one I had seen the girl do. The same one that didn't belong to anything human. "You already brought me out," it replied. My voice. But clearer. Cleaner. More certain than mine had ever been. A ripple of unease spread through me. "No," I said, "you stayed in there. That was the deal." It smiled. Slowly. Patiently. "You don't understand the deal." A pause. "You only understand the leaving." The air around us felt wrong. Muted. as if the world had taken a step back. You chose. It continued. And when you choose, it took a step forward. Out of the shadow. Into the light. Nothing stopped it. Nothing burned. Nothing held it back. Something always comes with you. My stomach dropped. Behind me, the street was normal. People walked past the entrance of the alley without looking in. Motorbikes passed. Voices overlapped. Life continued. And yet, no one saw it. No one noticed. It stepped closer. Now fully outside. Fully real. Standing just a few meters away from me. And I realized something worse than fear. It wasn't just out. It fit. Perfectly. Seamlessly. Like it had always belonged here. Like it had always been waiting to be let in. What are you going to do? I asked, my voice shaking despite everything. It didn't answer immediately. Instead, it looked past me. At the street. At the people. At the world beyond the alley. Observing. Learning. Calculating. Then it looked back at me. And smiled. I'm going to live. The simplicity of the answer hit harder than anything else. Using me? It shook its head slightly. Not just you. A pause. You're just the first one that worked. Something inside my chest tightened painfully. What does that mean? It stepped even closer now. Close enough that I could see the smallest details, the texture of skin. The reflection in its eyes. The exact shape of my own face staring back at me. But there was something else now. Something deeper. Something behind the eyes. Movement. Like layers shifting. Like more than one thing looking out at once. It means, it said softly, I don't need the alley anymore. The words landed like a final crack in something that had been barely holding together. No. My voice broke. You can't. I already did. Another step. Now we were face to face. Close enough that I could feel. Nothing. No breath. No warmth. Just absence. People go where people are. It said, that's how they're seen. My thoughts spiraled. If you can leave, then others. It tilted its head again. Smiling wider now. They will. A cold wave of understanding washed over me. This wasn't contained. This wasn't isolated. The alley wasn't the prison. It was the door. And I had opened it. Something shifted behind my eyes. A pressure. Familiar now. Too familiar. I staggered slightly. The thing watched. Interested. Ah, it said quietly. It's settling. My breath hitched. What is? It didn't answer directly. Instead, it leaned in. Closer than before. And whispered. You didn't leave empty. The world tilted. Just slightly. But enough. Enough to make everything feel unstable. Uncertain. Unreal. I looked at it. At my own face. At the thing standing in front of me. And for the first time, I wasn't sure anymore. Which one of us had walked out of that house?
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 15. The one who walks alone next. I didn't remember leaving the alley. Not clearly. There was no moment where I decided to walk away. No step I could point to and say, that's when I escaped. One moment I was standing there, face to face with it. And the next, I was somewhere else. My room. The same one. Second floor. The faint smell of damp walls and old wood. The ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. Normal. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands. They looked the same. The same scars. The same lines. The same slight tremor in my fingers. I lifted one hand. It lifted with me. Perfect. No delay. No difference. A breath escaped me. Relief. Sharp. Sudden. Desperate. Maybe I made it. Maybe whatever followed me out stayed behind. Maybe. A sound cut through the thought. Soft. Familiar. From the corner of the room. I froze. Slowly. I turned. The mirror. Hanging beside the door. Still slightly angled. Still reflecting the room. Still reflecting me. I stared. My reflection stared back. Still. Perfect. Matching. For a second. Nothing happened. Then. It smiled. I didn't. My heart stopped. Not slowed. Not skipped. Stopped. Everything inside me went silent. The reflection's smile widened slowly, stretching just a fraction too far. Just enough to break the illusion. Then. It spoke. Without moving its lips. You brought it out. My breath came back all at once. Sharp and painful. No. The word barely formed. You chose. The voice layered slightly now. Like before. Not just mine. Something underneath. Something deeper. You made space. My vision blurred. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. This isn't real, I whispered. The reflection tilted its head. That same motion. That same listening. You still think there's a difference? The room felt wrong again. Subtly. Quietly. Like something had shifted while I wasn't looking. Behind me. A sound. The soft creak of the door. Opening. I turned. Slowly. Carefully. And saw. Myself. Standing in the doorway. The same version. The one from the alley. The one that had walked out. It stepped inside. Closed the door behind it. And this time. It was breathing. My thoughts shattered. Which one? I couldn't finish the question. Because I didn't know how to ask it. Which one is real? Which one came back? Which one left? It looked at me. Calm. Certain. And said. We don't need to decide that anymore. A pause. Then. We both exist now. A cold realization settled in. Not fear. Not panic. Something worse. Acceptance trying to form. What happens next? I asked. My voice sounded distant. Like it didn't belong to me anymore. It smiled. Not cruel. Not mocking. Just natural. We live. It stepped closer. I didn't move. I couldn't. Because part of me understood. This wasn't the end. This wasn't even a conclusion. This was continuation. Expansion. The beginning of something that didn't stay in one place. Didn't stay in one form. Didn't stay contained. You won't always notice, it said quietly. Sometimes it'll be me. A step closer. Sometimes it'll be you. Another. Sometimes. It tilted its head. It'll be both. The room felt smaller. Tighter. Like it was folding inward again. I looked at it. At myself. At the reflection still smiling behind me. And something inside me gave in. Not fully. Not all at once. But enough. Enough to stop fighting. Enough to stop questioning. Because the truth was already there. Already inside. Already changing me. A few days later. People said I seemed different. Quieter. More distant. But still me. Close enough. Normal enough. No one questioned it. No one looked too closely. No one ever does. A week later. Someone new moved into the room next to mine. Young. Unfamiliar. Unaware. That night, just after the rain stopped, I stood by the window. Watching. The alley stretched behind the building. Dark. Still. Waiting. And then, I saw them. A figure. Walking alone toward it. They hesitated at the entrance. Just for a second. Then, they stepped in. I smiled. Without realizing it. That night. At exactly 3:12 a.m. There was a knock on their window. Soft. Careful. 3 times. And from the darkness outside. A familiar voice called out gently. "Hey, open the door." And somewhere, deep inside the alley, something listened. Something learned. Something waited. For the next person. Who walked in alone. Some stories don't end when you think they do. Some places don't stay where you left them. And some things don't need to follow you. Because you already brought them with you. So if you ever find yourself standing at the entrance of a quiet, empty alley, and you feel like something is watching from inside, don't look. Don't listen. And whatever you do, don't go in alone.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.